All right, let's go ahead and get this started since this is the last one of the day. Everybody had a good day so far? All right, I think there's prizes that are given out at the end of this one, right? So I got a prize to give away too. We're going to bring the lights up a little bit. I didn't know this was being recorded. I'm happy it's being recorded because I've been asked several times this year if it's being recorded, but had I known, I would have done something a little better with my hair today. But we'll see how it looks on camera. All right, so good afternoon. My name is McCain. I'm a Director of Product Management in the Networking and Security Business Unit at VMware. This is my first time delivering at a VMUG here in Europe, but for the past couple years, I've been delivering at VMUG various talks. So in 2015, and I'm going to walk around a bit too, so I don't have a tendency to stay on the stage. In 2015, a lot of the talks that I did were with regards to NSX as a technology. What does it do for your business? What are the features? What are the use cases? How does it work? 2016, all of my talks were more generic in nature, about digital transformation. How is the industry changing? How are businesses changing in response to the technologies that are now available? So when it came time for 2017, I thought, what is it that I would like to talk about? What is it that I've seen in the industry? What is it that I've seen in IT professionals that I think can hold relevance to where we are today? So I started thinking. Here's proof that I started thinking. And I thought, what is it that people would like to hear? And I thought, you know, a lot of these times people go to conferences, they go to the VMUGs, they go to these different places, and they hear a lot of this technical information, deep technical stuff. How does it work? Or maybe they hear some marketing stuff, right? Here's what it does for your business. And I thought, I don't want to do that. I don't want to talk about what's good for the business. I want to talk about what's good for people. So if you've learned some good technical information today, if you've seen some good marketing information, for the next 45 minutes, I want you to forget it. I want you to be selfish for the next 45 minutes. I want you to think about you and you alone, not the organization, not what a technology can do for a business, but about how you as a person plan on reacting to the shift that we're seeing in this industry. And so this is the talk that I came up with. I did some research on some various things you'll see throughout the talk. And I called it Clouds Collide and Lightning Strikes. And I think the clouds collide part, you can probably venture a guess as to where that came from, right? The obvious public cloud, private cloud, hybrid cloud, all these clouds seemingly come together. But the term lightning strikes has a certain element of uniqueness to it. This idea of opportunity, right? You see a lightning strike. It's not something that's done every day, but it's an opportunity for something unique. And what I want you to get out of this talk is that right now, with so much going on in our industry, that there really is tremendous opportunity for you, the IT professional, to take advantage of. Yes, there are things that help our companies. Yes, there are ways that we can solve problems that we couldn't because of technology. But ultimately, this talk is about you and how you plan on capitalizing on what's going on in the world today. So we have these clouds, these different clouds. The talk just before mine was about IBM, right? And the relationship that IBM has with VMware. And that one's been around for a couple years now. Obviously, the relationship with Amazon is another big one, not just for VMware, but also for Amazon. And then, of course, you look at the relationships that we continue to develop with Google and Azure, right? NSX on native Amazon as opposed to the VMware cloud on top of Amazon. So there's a lot of different things that we're doing in order to support a cloud strategy. See, any organization that looks at implementing multiple clouds, there are certain characteristics to the architecture that have to be there or the strategy is irrelevant. For example, if you wanted to have a hybrid cloud strategy with on-prem and off-prem, but that strategy involved re-IPing your applications upon moving between clouds, it's probably not a great strategy. If you wanted to go on-prem and off-prem, but in doing so, you had to re-architect the security posture of an application in transit or after transit, it's probably not a good strategy. Because now we're talking about having to do things again and again. So look, I'm a little bit biased towards NSX because obviously that's what I work with, but the reality is NSX is the glue that allows us to bring all of these different clouds together. NSX is the networking and security platform that will allow you to move between clouds without having to re-IP, or move between clouds without having to reestablish security posture before a workload can be brought back into production. So application compatibility, operational consistency, these are the things that you have to have in a cloud strategy, or it just doesn't make sense to go down that path. If we have to learn new constructs, if we have to reterm something when we move from cloud to cloud, you introduce operational complexity that make it very difficult to do that. So while all of this marketing is there and available about the whole hybrid cloud, multi-cloud strategy, the technologies have to be there to support that the business is going to want to do that. So here's a demo. It's a little bit older demo, but this demo is going to set the stage for what I want to talk about in the remainder of this session. This is a demo of what it looks like to implement a software-defined data center leveraging VMware Cloud on AWS. And this is just a publicly available demo. I pulled it off of YouTube and stripped the sound off of it. But what it shows you is going to be very relevant to this talk. So as we move through the demo, you're going to see here that we can pick a data center where we would like to deploy this new infrastructure. And at first release, we don't have every one of these locations, but in time, we will have that partnership develop with Amazon to support that. So we can see in the demo, we pick Ireland as the location. We then move through the wizard, and we get an opportunity to choose from some pre-canned cluster sizes, small, medium, and large. You can see the CPU capabilities, the memory, the storage. You can also customize or walk through a little wizard that will help you choose. We're going to choose the small. Then we have to choose how we're going to pay for this. You do have to pay for this. This is a managed service through VMware, so you will pay VMware, not Amazon. So we'll choose hourly or 1 year reserved, 3 year reserved, and then how you want to pay. And because this is a managed service through VMware, we have to establish a relationship between the VMware account that you own and the Amazon account that you own. Okay? Bring those two together so that VMware can then extract the information and know how much that you're going to get billed in that particular time. So this is just showing you how you link these two accounts. Nothing too fancy here. And then whoever did this demo was thinking about whether or not they should actually agree to this when they did it. But eventually they do agree. You guys don't have to think that long if you do this. And so now the two accounts are linked. We can supply a name, agree to the terms and conditions, and then create VMware Cloud. So I want you to think about what's actually occurring when you click Create VMware Cloud, right? This little thing, and I don't mean just this is spinning. I mean what's happening in the back end. So what happens now is it goes out into Amazon's infrastructure, pulls in these physical servers, installs ESXi onto them, configures them as a cluster, all the underlying networking, the storage configuration, and puts them all together into a cluster. When we're done, we can leverage the portal to get a high-level overview of where we've deployed these different clouds, so Virginia, Oregon, and the one we just deployed in Ireland. We can see a dashboard summary of the utilization of these resources. So operationally, that's been pretty easy. But I want you to think about the difference between what you just saw versus what you would do in a typical environment to achieve the same thing. And by that I mean, if Amazon is not automating the reclamation of all of this and the automation of all of this, who would be doing it otherwise? On-prem, who does this? The IT person, right? He just pointed at him, right? He's the guy that does it. There's a person, there's a human that's responsible for stepping in to do these things. We can see the NSX integration here gives us the ability to add firewall rules, to configure VPNs. So I really don't need to go too much further here because it's proved the point that I need. But obviously, things are different. When you look at cloud infrastructure, things are different. Job roles change in cloud infrastructure. Skill sets change in cloud infrastructure. So let's talk about this cloud idea. Here's some numbers I pulled off the internet from somewhat reputable resources in Forbes and Gartner that talk about this growth of cloud. Forbes says in 2016, spending on public cloud infrastructure as a service, hardware and software is forecast to reach $38 billion, growing to $173 billion in 2026. That's a lot. Gartner says worldwide public cloud services market is projected to grow 17.2% in 2016 to total $208.6 billion, up from $178 billion in 2015, and the highest growth will be in the IaaS space. All right, let me ask you a question. When do you think that the number of workloads, traditional IT workloads, sitting on traditional infrastructure, is going to equal the number of workloads that are sitting on cloud infrastructure? And I'm going to give you a caveat. When I say cloud, I mean either public or private cloud. How many of you think that 2018 will be when we hit that 50-50 mark? Okay, some of you. How many of you think it'll be 2021 when we hit that mark? Maybe a few more in that one. Anybody think 2024? You guys are probably tied with the 2018s. The winner is 2021. I did not calculate this myself. I got it from Pat Gelsinger, our CEO. So if you have issues with those numbers, you can send him a tweet. Yeah, 2021, we expect that half the workloads that are out there will be on public or private cloud. The other half will be traditional infrastructure. But more importantly, look what happens after 2021. This cloud idea really takes off. This idea of, I don't want to have to deal with hardware. I'm not in the business of managing hardware. I'm not in the business of racking and stacking and cabling and worrying about the underlying infrastructure. I want to get out of that business. Many customers are saying that's what they want. Now, some customers don't understand the whole cloud part of it, but that's what they're saying they want. But I tell you, here's a more important question, because these numbers are numbers, and we can probably go on the internet and find all kinds of numbers. But what's more important to me today in this talk is this question. Do you, as an IT professional, agree with these numbers? Not that they're exactly 100% right, but do you believe that this is the way that the industry is going, that this cloud adoption is going to occur at a pace like we just saw? So if you do agree, raise your hand. If you think that cloud is coming and this is what companies want, raise your hand. And look around, right? I mean, it's not an unpopular opinion to believe that this is the shift the industry is undergoing. So those of you who believe that these projections are about as realistic as unicorns that poop chocolate ice cream, raise your hand. So there's a few folks who don't believe that these projections are accurate, okay? But the overwhelming majority of people, from industry leaders all the way through, believe that cloud is the wave of the future. How many of you have a company that has begun talking about cloud? I don't care if you've actually implemented it, but how many of you work at a company that has actually begun talking about a cloud strategy? Again, look around. It is not an unpopular thing to at least begin thinking about a potential strategy in the cloud. How many of you work at a company that has not begun thinking about cloud? Don't be ashamed. It's okay. We'll get you a new job at another one that does. How many of you own an iPhone? How many of you own a Google phone? Android, yeah. Anybody have a flip phone and want to show it? Last week, I actually had 2 people in the audience. Both had a flip phone. It doubled the number of people previous to that. And now the real one. Does anybody have a BlackBerry? What? Is that a UK thing? Because I've seen only 1 all year, and now we just had 5 in the same room. Are you guys part of a group? The last 5 who own stock in BlackBerry, maybe? All right, what's the relevance to this, Chris? Why would you ask? Because there's a significant difference between these two, right? Between the smartphone market and the not smart and wanted to be smart. But what it says about us as individuals, the fact that the majority of people own smartphones, is that as people, we're willing to embrace a new technology. We are not afraid to go get a smartphone. We are not afraid to go download an app. We want access to information. We want something that, quote unquote, makes our lives more agile, makes communication more efficient. But the question is, do you operate the same way in your IT career? Do you have that same openness to a new technology? Anybody buy an iPhone X? Anyone? I'm sure everybody's seen like the lines of people, right, that are waiting for these new technologies. So as individuals, we tend to embrace new technology quite rapidly. In some cases, without even first learning about it. We do it, right? In hopes that we like it, not knowing that we might or might not. How many of you do compute or storage for a living? Usually it's the bulk of the people at a VMUG, right? It's VMware user group. How many of you do switching and routing for a living? Okay? And how many of you do firewalls or security for a living? All right? Yeah, some people just keep your hand up the whole time, right? Because you do everything. All right, so that begs another question. In that demo that you just saw in deploying infrastructure on Amazon, how much compute and storage did you see happen in that video? None, right? In fact, in the managed service provided by VMware, we don't let you do that. We're trying to eliminate the need for you to have to do that. You don't get to change your cluster configurations. We're managing the infrastructure. How much switching and routing did you see? You think Amazon's going to let you go trunk VLANs for you? No, absolutely not. But that's part of cloud mindset, right? Is getting away from having to do those types of things. How much firewall configuration did you see? Physical firewall configuration? None. Amazon's not going to let you touch the physical firewalls. They're not letting you have access to that underlying infrastructure. Now, you didn't see those things happen at the physical level because that's where the big shift is occurring in what's available when you move to cloud. So all of these things, the compute, storage, switching, routing, firewall, security, all of these things are being abstracted into the hypervisor. So you didn't see any of the networking stuff get configured, the physical networking stuff. It doesn't mean that networking doesn't exist. It's just being abstracted into the hypervisor. So not that the skill sets are no longer valid. The skill set is still extremely valid. It's just the implementation of those skills happens in the hypervisor, not at the physical switch level. And it's not that security isn't valuable. It's just not as valuable at the physical level as it would be in the abstracted level. So understanding the concepts of dynamic routing with BGP and OSPF and packet walks and ARP replies and ARP requests from a networking perspective is critical to the success of the infrastructure. It's just no longer being performed at the physical level. it's being performed in software. And understanding how applications communicate, different tiers of applications, and what ports and what protocols, and how applications behave are still critical to the infrastructure. It's just no longer will we use physical firewalls to configure that. It'll be done in an abstraction in the hypervisor. Ultimately, when we look at cloud, what we want to do is get away from having to do the physical tasks. What we want to do is get away from having to do things again and again. We want to shift the mindset in the IT workforce to be more towards designing, more towards automating, operations, management, not configuration again and again and again. Ideally, if we could design the architecture once, wire the architecture once, implement the architecture once, but still maintain the characteristics for elasticity and scale and performance, why wouldn't that be a better way to do things than constantly revisiting the architecture? And if we leverage software, then we can do those things. How many of you were networking people again? The networking people? Look, all the networking people I ever talk to say, man, it would be great if our physical network was just static and stable and reliable. I'm sure the network is tired of being blamed for all the problems. I'm sure the network is tired of being the brunt of every joke as to why it takes so long to deploy a virtual machine. So you ask the networking people, if you could have a static, stable, reliable physical network, would you want it? They will say yes. The problem is, the people who consume the network, what do they want? They want dynamic infrastructure. Give it to me now. Don't worry about the impact on the rest of the network. Just give it to me now. That's not the way that it works. Because when we deal with physical gear and we deal with trunking VLANs and things like that, we have to make sure that everything is done properly. That's why we want to get away from having to leverage the physical hardware to do these things. Let's design it. Let's automate it. Let's focus on operations and monitoring as opposed to configuration. All right, another important question. How many of you would like to drive the BMW i8 to work every day? I know Rawlinson would. He's a BMW fan. How many of you would like the Tesla? Anybody want a horse and carriage? A couple of you. And that's twice the number that was in Texas, and I figured Texas. Again, as individuals, you are very quick to jump on the high-tech, software-driven automobile. Are you that same way at work? Are you that same way with your IT career? Are you that same way when it comes to looking at new technologies? How would you like to protect your home? Nice white picket fence with a green hedge? That looks super safe. Would you like a tank? How many would like a tank? Obviously, it could be effective. Might be a little late by the time you get there. A little hard to target exactly what might be attacking you, but certainly effective. By the way, the number of tanks that just raised their hand was also more than in Texas. How many of you would like multiple enforcement points as a way of protecting your home and family? Something that can identify, protect at multiple levels. Well, that's why less people raise their hand. You're allowed to have tanks, though? He's like, I'm not raising my hand because guns aren't allowed, but a tank, give me one of those. That's certainly allowed. Pull that in your driveway. The point is, again, as individuals, you look for something that gives you a defense in-depth strategy for your own personal safety. Why would you not want the same thing for the organization that you work for? Why would you not want something that's going to give you the ability to protect what you're responsible for at multiple levels. How many of you have a VMware certification? That's typically the most popular at a VMUG. How many of you have a Cisco certification? Okay. Anybody have multiple among Amazon, Cisco, and VMware? Well, that's a good number too. So looking forward, when a company thinks of having a cloud strategy, oh, we're going to have on-prem here, we're going to have off-prem in IBM or off-prem in Amazon or Google, it's not going to make sense operationally to have different individuals managing different architectures for the same mobile workloads. Looking forward in the IT industry, people are going to have an amount of knowledge across platforms. We're going to have to be a much more diverse workforce when it comes to knowing about different platforms. There's an evolution that has to occur in IT. And honestly, NSX has really been the catalyst for this evolution. I'll tell you why. When vSphere really first started to pick up momentum, I think we can all say it was probably VMware Infrastructure 3, VI3. All right? Anybody worked with ESX2 that long? Okay, so a number of you. Look, I used to teach ESX courses, and ESX2, nobody had it in production. Right? It was a lot of lab stuff, but man, people were wowed by vMotion. Then VI3 came out, and we really made some radical changes that allowed companies to say, I will put that in production, right? Things like HA and DRS. We filled some gaps. And people said, now, okay, we can put this in production. But I want you to think about the impact. The impact of vSphere back in 2000, what was it? Rawlinson, 2006 is when I wrote the book that you didn't want to help me on? Yeah. So in 2006, Rawlinson wrote one page, I wrote the other 500, for the Mastering VMware Infrastructure 3 book. Page and a half. Right? But at this time, we really didn't know what the market would look like. But it turns out that there was a tremendous impact. But who did it impact? Who did vSphere impact? In the IT, right? In the IT space, IT organization, who did it impact? Somebody yelled it. No? Well, hardware vendors, yeah, but in the IT organization, right? No? Nope. Windows people, right? Who took on the job of managing vSphere? It was the operating system people, typically the Windows administrator. So the impact of the networking people, negligible, because we still operated the same way. Hey, can I have a network? What do you need it for? Don't worry about it. Just give me a network. 2 weeks later, you had a network, right? That operational model didn't change because of vSphere. Sure, the vSphere admin now had to learn how to put a VLAN ID, right, on a port group, but that's about it, right? The networking still got to operate in their own silo away from everything. Did vSphere impact the security people managing firewalls? No, no big deal, right? We still manage the ingress, egress traffic, what's allowed, what's not allowed. So we still had very clear lines drawn in the sand. We had very clear demarcation points between networking, virtualization, and security. Now introduce NSX, and we just killed those lines. So now you have the networking people looking at it going, wait a minute, this is what I typically do. Now you're saying it's in the hypervisor. Does that mean that it's supposed to be the hypervisor team that manages this? And you have the security people saying, well, wait a minute, that's what we do in the physical firewalls. Now you're telling me it's in the hypervisor. Is this for the hypervisor people to do this? And the hypervisor people are going, oh my God, are we supposed to do this? Because the hypervisor people don't understand application architectures and packet flows. The hypervisor people don't understand BGP and OSPF and dynamic routing and all these things. So those lines are gone. There's an evolution that has to occur in 3 places. I'm going to start with tooling. Tooling's an easy one. Look, if you're looking at revamping the architecture of your data center, but you plan on using legacy tools to capture information, you're wrong. It doesn't work. You need a next-generation tool set to manage and monitor a next-generation data center architecture. If you're going to move your architecture to a more converged, highly correlated infrastructure, then you have to get away from domain-specific, hardware-focused tooling and move towards tools that give you that converged and correlated information. If you have virtual SAN and NSX and you're using vRealize and all these different tools, you want something that shows you the big picture. If I'm leveraging NSX, I don't want a tool that shows me packet flows across physical hardware. Because with NSX, it's possible I don't even hit the physical hardware. I want tools that are going to show me a packet flow from the source VM through the virtual switch, to the hypervisor, to the top of rack, to the spine, to the top of rack, to the other hypervisor, to the destination. So that if it's not getting to the destination, I can pinpoint exactly where the problem is. You can't do that with legacy tools. We have to change our tooling. The second evolution is in processes. We have to be open to adopting process automation. And this one, it's not as easy as tooling. And the reason it's not as easy as tooling is because many customers that I go out and talk to, when I say, hey, what is your process for X, they don't know it. They don't even know their process. So what do you do? How do you get a VM? We call Dave. Dave builds the VM. How does Dave build a VM? I don't know. Maybe he right-click, new VM, walk through a wizard, mounts an ISO. Or maybe he's highly automated, uses a template, and then just copies the template. So you have to be able to define your processes in order to understand what it is your business does, and then take those processes and build them into faster, more agile, and standardized processes using automation tools. VRA, VIO, Puppet, Chef, whatever tool it is that you want to use. But you first have to have those processes defined. And then the last evolution, the most difficult of all evolutions, is people. People have to change. We have to change the way we think about the jobs that we're doing. We have to think about the change in architecture. We have to get away from being siloed, specialized IT people. We need to work as more blended, cross-functional IT. This scares people. More so than I ever thought it would. But it scares people. Because they think, what if I can't? That's not my job. That's not what I do. I'm not saying we eliminate role-based access control. I'm not saying we take the keys to the kingdom and just say, hey, here you go, networking team, do whatever you want in vSphere. Here you go, security team, do whatever you want in vSphere. Here you go, vSphere team, do whatever you want to the network. That's scary. It is scary. So I'm not suggesting we eliminate role-based access control. But if we are going to converge into the hypervisor, if we are going to abstract services into the hypervisor, then it does not make sense to operate as siloed infrastructure. Because the networking team cannot operate without understanding the concept of hypervisor. The networking team cannot operate without understanding the distributed model that's presented with distributed routing. And the security team can't operate without understanding distributed firewalling capability. You have to have that knowledge. We all have to understand the impact of what we're doing on everybody else. Like I said, the lines in the sand are gone. We are now all operating within the same infrastructure. We are now all operating within the same hypervisor. We have to know what each other are doing. If you look at the number of jobs as cloud becomes a more dominant player, the number of jobs that deal with physical security, physical networking, physical servers, those things are going to decrease. Those opportunities are going to decrease. Now, does that mean that nobody? No, obviously somebody has to do it. Somebody's got to be at Amazon racking and stacking and configuring physical switches. Somebody's got to be at IBM doing racking and stacking and configuring physical switches. But is that really where you want to be if that's your skill set? Do you want to try and go work at IBM doing racking and stacking? Or would you rather evolve? Would you rather look for opportunities in networking and security virtualization, data center automation, cloud operations? Would you rather be one of those cross-functional individuals that understands multiple architectures, multiple products? Somebody who can help design cloud strategy. Somebody who could engineer cloud infrastructure. Somebody who could manage cloud operations. So, what is the most common reason that people fear change, or people don't want to change? How many of you think it's fear? Good number of people. How many people think it's money? How many people think it's time? Okay, so those of you who put your hand up for time, you're thinking like IT professionals, not just humans. You're thinking, my company's not going to give me the time. I'm already stretched thin. I don't have the time to learn that. I don't have the time to do this. But I promise you this, if you were forced tomorrow to go get a new job, you would find both the time and the money to learn what you needed to get a new job. I promise you. It's just survival, right? The most common reason that people don't change is fear. Here's a quote. Fear was given to us as a motive to avoid physical harm and death. That's it. We are the ones who have perverted it into a tool for the ego's protection. All right, so maybe that's a bit deep for a closing keynote, right, at an IT conference. But ultimately, that's true. Obviously, fear does not apply to everyone. Fear of harm or death does not apply to everyone, right? There's this scale, this spectrum of fear, that for some, even harm or death does not affect them. This happens to be Rawlinson Rivera, who's in the audience right there. He's a former X Games rollerblade gold medalist who thinks it's entertaining to do backflips off of a roof at a party. Do not try this at home. But there's a point to this, right? And Rawlinson, as much as I like to make fun of him, is a very good case for this entire speech. See, his fearlessness does not end at party tricks. Because if you look at the course of what he's done with his own IT career, you could say he's been fearless. He went from being an X Games rollerblade gold medalist to working in a bank as an IT manager, where I found him. He was in a Microsoft boot camp that I taught. He then learned VMware. He went to VMware. He started in education, went to PSO, then worked his way up until he's now a CTO at a large player in our industry. Because he's never been afraid to take that step. He's never been afraid to take a chance, to learn a new technology, to push the envelope, clearly. He's got twins on the way. I don't think he would do that today. I'm afraid that NSX will hurt me, said no one, ever. In IT, we don't have that fear of harm or death because of a new technology. If you disagree, well, look. As of March 27, 2017, there have been 0 reported deaths resulting from the deployment of VMware NSX. And sure, March 27th was several months ago. I could check the statistics, but I'm pretty confident there are still 0 deaths. Now, it doesn't say there's no injuries, because I'm pretty sure there's some networking and virtualization people who have gotten into fights, okay? But there haven't been deaths resulting from it. So what it comes down to is your mindset. What it comes down to is the way you approach the opportunities that are in your life. So this research came from a book by an author named Carol Dweck. The book is called Mindset, the New Psychology of Success. And in the book, she defines 2 different mindsets, a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. The fixed mindset is one in which you think about your abilities, your character, your intelligence, all these different characteristics of yourself as fixed. I'm born the way I'm born, and that's what I have. Now, this natural syndrome, this idea of I'm a natural at this. We have a tendency more maybe as parents to see kids this way, right? Boys naturally this or girls naturally that. But the point is the labeling. That's where we as adults are still very good. We're very good at labeling ourselves. I'm the VLAN guy. I'm the security girl. Look, nobody is ever born a natural VLANer. Nobody ever says, oh man, I can subnet so good, I'm natural. Give me an IP and a subnet mask, I'll tell you the networks. But in IT, we are very good at putting ourselves in a box and saying, this is what I do. This is my particular job. And that's the mindset that gets us into trouble when we start to look at how cloud gets designed and engineered and managed. The growth mindset, on the other hand, is that our intelligence, our abilities, our outcomes, our personality, our character, these are all things that we can develop. These are all things that we can put effort into changing when we see fit. So how is the IT culture impacted by this mindset? Well, I just talked about it. These labels that we put on ourselves, these silos that we construct or have constructed historically because they supported the way that we had to operate, is a very fixed mindset way to think. The growth mindset, on the other way, the mindset that we all need to start to adopt, is looking at things and saying, how can I change the way I work to better support the business? Not, this is what I do, but how can I work to better support the business? How do my current processes impact the lines of business and or my coworkers? And what value can I bring to a more closely aligned team to ensure the success of the business? Because if we can't all start thinking that way, as our companies move more and more towards cloud, it's going to be more and more of a struggle to be able to make that cloud strategy a success. The fixed mindset will look at something very black and white. Will I succeed or will I fail? And if it looks like the chances are more towards failure, they don't do it. Right? Especially because of that natural syndrome. If I'm a natural subnetter, well, I don't want to do something that's going to jeopardize my status as a natural subnetter. I don't want people to know I'm not really a natural subnetter. Will it look smart or dumb? Will something negative happen? No one's going to use the cloud. Someone still has to manage the hardware. Versus taking a more growth mindset approach and will I learn something? Will this help me get better? Can I make something positive from it? How can I learn more about cloud or NSX to understand full value? Sure. Would I love it if everybody in here went and got certified on NSX and just bought it? Yes, I would. It's great because I work at VMware. But the reality is, forget about NSX. Maybe it's Amazon. Maybe it's IBM. Maybe it's containers. Whatever that technology is that kind of piques your interest, you should start to explore it. Because the job roles that we know today are going to be changing over time. So open your mindset to looking at new technologies and exploring those technologies. Now, some of you will think, well, but my company's not going to do containers. But my company's not going to do NSX. What did I tell you when I started this whole thing? Forget about your company. This is about you as an IT professional. This is about you finding a way to continue to be successful in the industry. And if you go get certified on some new technology, Amazon, NSX, containers, whatever it might be, then doors open up for you to make a transition if the company's not going to. This isn't about company success. This is about your personal success. Overall, in life, a fixed mindset typically puts you in a box that prevents you from reaching full potential because you don't step outside that box. A fixed mindset typically feels that success breeds happiness. Success breeds happiness. Now, this is another book that I read called The Happiness Advantage by Sean Acker. He's a Harvard guy. who studied the relationship between success and happiness. And what he actually found is that it's inverted from the way most people think. It's actually that happiness breeds success, not the other way around. So let me explain. Even if you are a highly motivated, intrinsically motivated individual with a fixed mindset, here's what tends to happen. You set a goal and you work real hard. Oh man, I'm working so hard. God, I'm putting in so much time. This is so hard. Oh my God, look at me. I'm sweating. God, this is hard. Meet your goal. Hey, I'm happy. Woohoo! But as a highly motivated individual, what do you do next? That's exactly what you ask yourself. What do I do next? So you find another goal. And now what do? Oh my God, I'm working so hard. Oh, I'm so miserable. This is crazy, but I'm working so hard. And then you meet your goal. Woohoo, I'm happy, right? And so you go through this happy, working hard, not happy. Happy, working hard, not happy, right? If you flip that around, find happiness in the process. Find happiness in the challenge that you take on. Then you reach your goal. All right, maybe your happiness goes up a little bit. And you say, okay, what's next? But if you're happy with the process, if you're happy with embracing the challenge, if you see value in the challenge, not just the end goal, well, then you don't spend all that time unhappy and woe is me, I'm working so hard, this sucks type mentality. And so in this book, that's what he found, is those individuals who found joy in being able to challenge themselves to do new things are the individuals who ultimately found the highest levels of success. So in our industry, in the business, in the IT space, we're going to have those that from a culture and technology perspective are the laggards. We're going to have those individuals that are resistant to change. Those ones that insist on legacy IT. But we're going to have leaders as well. And the leaders aren't just the people who are going to embrace IT transformation. They are going to be the people who step up to rewrite the rules in IT. The people who step up to say, yes, we have to break down the silos. We can't operate this way anymore. We're going to create cross-functional teams, multidisciplinary teams. And by that, I don't mean that we get one person from networking, one from virtualization, and one from security, and they meet on Monday. That's not a cross-functional team. I'm talking about truly restructuring our IT organizations to support better operations. The leaders are the ones who are going to be aware of their mindset and foster a growth mindset. They will be the ones who learn new technologies and the ones who don't make decisions from a place of ego-centered, illusion-based fears. Because really, any fear that we would have towards a new technology, a new architecture, is illusionary, right? We are creating that because we don't know until we explore, until we actually take that chance and make that choice. And I've seen it. I've seen it from customers. I have some customers that are very, very conservative. Oh, we just can't make that change. We just can't do that. We can't afford. We can't afford. And then I've got other customers that say, you know what? We know there's going to be bumps along the way. We know that there's going to be some hurdles that we have to overcome. But if we keep waiting and waiting and waiting, then our company falls behind. I haven't met an executive level person yet that has a fixed mindset, because I don't think you get to that level having a fixed mindset. You have to embrace growth in order to achieve those levels. Every company wants to be a growth company. It's unfortunate that not every employee within those companies wants to be a growth employee. But in the IT space, we have an opportunity today to really take on some unique opportunities and see this grow as the coming years come about. I added this link not too long ago. I found this article, just happened to come across Facebook or Yahoo or News or whatever it was. 6 things that Google teaches all of its managers. Anybody want to guess what number 1 is? What's that? I think that was 3. Growth mindset. The number 1 thing that Google teaches all of its managers is growth mindset. Not just how to have it, not just how to develop it, how to identify it, how to foster it, how to build teams that all support the growth mindset. Because when you can get people to change their mindset, you can really make tremendous change in the infrastructure. All right, can I get a volunteer? I will give a prize. Oh, he stood up. Always. I always have to give a prize. There you go. What's your name? Christopher?
Chris.
All right. So introduce yourself to us. Tell us who you work for, what you do. And then I would like to know, so for the past 40 minutes, we've been talking not so much about business, but as an individual in the IT space, I would like to know, first of all, your thoughts on the industry as a whole and how you plan on attacking these changes that are occurring for yourself in your own IT career.
Okay, my name's Chris Crawford. I work for, well, I don't put myself in a box, but I'm infrastructure. By and large, storage compute. I've kind of forgotten what I was going to ask. What I got to tell you.
So I want to know your thoughts about this change that's going on in the industry and how you as an IT professional plan on getting through this change. What will you do as an individual to continue to be relevant in the IT space?
Well, I mean, I clearly see we are moving towards a cloud-hosted off-prem, development environment where we're not going to be looking after the box of tin. This was probably properly introduced to me at one of these events about 2 years ago. And from then, I've taken Azure courses. Unfortunately, my company isn't as adoptive as I think they should be as yet. But I think it is going to be a growing environment, a growing trend, and I intend to move with it. And that's the plan anyway.
So are there any particular technologies that you've started to explore or look at that are outside the box you just put yourself in?
I've been trying to integrate a bit of cloud storage, looking at ways we can, if you like, hybrid our environments. But I'm not at the edge where we push this innovation. So I'm waiting for it to happen and ideally grow with that. But
Okay.
The mindset needs to be there, and I need to develop it. We all do.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you very much. Round of applause, please. So, Chris, the prize is VMUG Advantage. I don't know if you already have it, but it's a $200 value. Comes with all the licenses for VMware. So just see me afterwards, and I'll take care of you. All right. So, look, he openly admitted, first off, that he put himself in a box in the beginning, right? Which, look, we tend to do that in IT. That's the way that we've operated. It's okay. But he's now aware. And I think the most important thing is he said he needs to change his mindset. Because that's the common way that we think in IT, right? And that is what we have to do. We have to change our mindset. We have to then look and say, okay, what is it I want to do next? Maybe you were in early on virtualization. Maybe you just got into virtualization. But I think the key is figuring out what is it that's going to drive me for the next 5, 10, 15 years as you continue down this path in IT. So with that, let me leave you with a couple things. Earlier this year, VMUG and the NSBU at VMware together created a community specific for those individuals who are interested in NSX. So we've grown to over 24,000 members. There's 350 ongoing discussion boards. If you join this community, if you get in, if you're asking good questions and answering questions, we've been known to pop in and start giving away swag. So we've given away hats, we've given away t-shirts, we've given away certification vouchers, we've given away, I think, 3 $4,000 training packages on NSX. So this isn't about joining a community and being the person who can answer every question, but being the person who's engaged, being the person who's interested, being the person who's driving discussions holds a lot of value when we pop into these things. So if you haven't had an opportunity to do this, definitely get out and join this community and be active. With that, thank you very much, and have a good rest of your day.